John 12. Verse 1 gives a careful time marker. Then 6 days before the Pascha, that's the Passover, 6 days, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that would be the previous Friday, Jesus came to Bethany where Lazarus was who had been dead, whom he had raised from the dead. So working back from Passover, Pascha, we call it in Greek, we have a meal that's 2 days before the triumphal entry. There they made him a deipnon. Let's get the Greek word there. A deipnon. Now that is a Greco-Roman dinner party idea. Here's a quotation from a commentator. A deipnon in this setting, used 4 times in John, 16 times in the New Testament, describes a Greco-Roman banquet common from the highest echelons of society right down to ordinary meals with ordinary participants. Ben Witherington. The concept is very different, this kind of a meal, very different from the Pascha idea of Passover and the feast associated with Passover. In fact, that's 29 times in Greek in the New Testament, never associated with the 16 times that deipnon is used. So this is a dinner party. This is a very carefully fashioned meal, of course, celebrating in the Jewish fashion the Exodus from Egypt. So as our story starts in John 12, a dinner party is being thrown for Jesus in the home of Lazarus. Of course, it's also including Mary and Martha. And we also then, by the way, in Matthew 26 and Mark 14, we are told of a man named Simon the leper. And it seems to be the same story. We'll get to that text later. But many or numerous commentators believe that Simon the leper was either the father of these 3 individuals, who notice are not married apparently, or that Lazarus himself is Simon. That could be too. So again, there seems to be a major moment here in the story of Jesus in all 4 Gospels that we have this supper. It was likely, in other words, a very crowded affair, men and women, probably unclean by standards of Jewish thinking, even outsiders. Many people, noisy, crowded, a joyous affair. Remember, Lazarus has just been raised from the dead, so it's many more than the 12 disciples is the point. It's in this setting that we read then that Mary took a pound of very costly oil and anointed the feet of Jesus and wiped his feet with her hair. And Judas Iscariot speaks up for the first time in the biblical record. He says, "Why was this fragrant oil not sold for 300 denarii and given to the poor?" And then an editorial comment is slipped in, importantly for the reader. This he said not that he cared for the poor, but because he was a thief and he had the money box and he used to take what was put in it. And then Jesus says this, interestingly, "Forgive her." And we wonder the tone in Jesus' voice as he said it. "She is doing this for my burial." I take it to mean, little does she know that this is being done for my death. Well, then chapter 12, verse 12, says that on the next day, Jesus enters Jerusalem. So the next day would be probably meaning, and that is Sunday, because it's the triumphal entry, verse 12. So that probably implies that verses 10 and 11 are Saturday, which would be the chief priests plotted to put Lazarus to death also. And I think that word also means along with Jesus. They've already been thinking about this, but now the plot begins to thicken, where they're not only going to try to kill Jesus, but they're going to try to kill Lazarus because he is so popular. And Luke 22 verse 3 seems to imply, and we'll get there of course, that at this time, and maybe it was because of what Jesus said to Judas, that Judas himself will plot the way he's going to betray Jesus now, back again about a week before Passover itself. Well, this then sets the stage for verses 20 through 50 in our reading today, and that would be a time of teaching in the temple area, again teaching in the temple, going out to Bethany at night. And we hear things like this where Jesus, and I'm sure the teaching was fantastic in the sense of no more just parables, not enigmatic statements, but clearly describing this final opportunity for people to make their choice. And we have, in fact, in verse 42, it says that many did believe. And so Jesus is dividing the crowd during this time in the temple between believers and non-believers, saying things like this: the hour has come for the Son of Man to be glorified. And one of the, probably most favorite moments of Jesus' life was to hear his Father's voice audibly from heaven. This is the third time that God breaks protocol and speaks from heaven. First time being baptism, then the transfiguration, and now here. I have glorified your name and will glorify it again. And people thought it had thundered or a divine being had spoken. That must have been fascinating. Well, now in preparation for tomorrow, if you're reading the text before you watch the video, as you read John 13 and 14, notice how it starts. Let me just give you the first two verses. Now before... Here's how John 13 starts. Before the feast of the Pascha. So before this time, and Deipnon occurring. 13:1. Before this feast and Deipnon occurring, Jesus rose from the Deipnon and poured water into a basin and began to wash his followers' feet. Jesus will do to others what Mary had done to him. And therefore, what I recommend you do is you read John 13 and 14 all the way through 17 as though this is the kind of discussion, this is the discussion that was not happening on Passover, but was happening at this feast prior to Passover.